Hello and welcome back to a VATSIM UK self-study lesson for the P1. In today's lesson, exercise 9, we are going to be covering circuit joins, mainly overhead joins and crosswind joins. So the aim of today's lesson, we're going to learn how to join the circuit from any point. So some threat and error management of today is obviously over traffic. We've got lots of other traffic in the circuit. So it's imperative that you do a good lookout and listen to the traffic information if it's provided. Now, you can also receive certain illusions when in the circuit. So you should have learned about this in theory, but for example at Shoreham, where we have got a quite a narrow runway, but also long runway, you might get the illusion that you're very high. So it's important to account for that as you're in the circuit. And then the self-study air exercise that you're going to do yourself is you're going to have a go at departing the circuit in a number of ways, including a circuit leg departure and departure via VRP. You're then going to turn around at the VRP and join the circuit, perform a touch and go, depart the circuit to practice another join. And you're going to repeat that until you're happy with the circuit joins. So we're going to discuss overhead joins initially. So for an overhead join, this is what it looks like. So an overhead join is coming from the live side. So when you picture this, you need to imagine the runway and its circuit direction. So for example, at Shoreham, we've got the left-hand circuit here. So we're going to be coming from the live side of the circuit. As we cross the circuit side, or the live side, we need to be circuit height plus 1,000 feet. This is to keep us separated from the traffic currently in the circuit. We're then going to aim for the active numbers, aka the numbers the airport's currently landing on. We're then going to cross just to the right of them, as you can see in the picture here. And once you're onto the dead side, you're going to start a powered descent down as a turn onto the crosswind. And you need to be at circuit height by the time you cross the active numbers to get on crosswind. And then it's simply just a normal circuit to land. Now this join is the most preferred at a lot of airports because it gives you the most amount of time to look for other traffic and kind of plan your join out. However, it is important to check the AIP to see what is the preferred join or what joins are and aren't allowed at certain airports. So that is a overhead join. We've already called up Shoreham Approach and we've got our joining clearance and they've told us to report overhead Brighton Marina. So we would then mention to Shoreham Approach that we're overhead Brighton Marina and then they would hand us off to Tower. Now Tower will normally be the ones that would give us the join for the airfield. So we would call up Tower and then Tower might say to us, just Roger. They might give us traffic information. If they don't give us a specific join, we can expect a standard overhead join at Shoreham. However, they might also just tell us to report overhead. So, now we've been told to report overhead runway 20 for a left-hand circuit. We need to plan out the join and find out what we're doing. And this could be also used at any airfield. If you've got the G1000, you've got a couple of handy features involved. You've got on the DI, directional indicator, you've got a CDI button. Now, localizers, yes, are used for usually the P2 and IFR flying. However, we're not using the localizer per se. We're just using this as a way to visualize the circuit on the instruments. So, what we'll do is we'll set the runway heading on the course. So, we set heading 200 degrees, which is the runway. Now, you got the heads, which will point in the runway direction. And now we need to visualize a left-hand circuit. So imagine drawing a left-hand circuit on this. So the circuit comes out to the south, if you see that. Now, based on that, we need to determine whether we're on the live or the dead side. Well, the circuit is on the R side of the airfield, so that means we're on the live side of the airfield, which means we are doing a standard overhead join. If we were on the dead side, we could simply do a dead side join. That will be covered at the end of this video, but for this one we're going to be doing a standard overhead join. So how a standard overhead join works is we're going to be proceeding to the active runway, so runway 20 in this case, which is to the right of the airfield. We need to be on the live side, circuit height plus 1,000 feet. So in the case of Shoreham, 2,100 feet. And now we are simply just going to proceed towards the airfield and be to the right of the active numbers. We don't want to be overhead the numbers, because if we're overhead the numbers we won't see, we risk not seeing the airfield and we risk missing it completely. So we want to fly just to the right of the airfield like we're doing now. No more than about what we're doing here, as long as you can see the airfield off to your left. So we're now approaching the airfield and we're inside the ATZ as we're in 2 miles now. So we're just flying this and we want to be perpendicular to the runway. So you can use the DI to line that up, so you can use these 90-degree pointers to set that on the runway. But we also we are visually flying, so we want to be able to check that outside the window. So the plan is when we go overhead the numbers, we will then be on the dead side, which is where we can start descending down to circuit height. So we're always keeping that airfield in our sight. Look out attitude instruments, remember. Always keep our head on a swivel, look out for traffic, look at the windsock, especially if there's no ATC on to see the wind. So we can see there the windsock's coming in from the right, so a lovely straight crosswind for myself today. So we're now on the dead side, so we are going to reduce the power back to 1700 RPM. And we're going to start our descent down to circuit height. Golf Delta Alpha, overhead, runway 20, dead side descending. And then ATC would tell us to report downwind. So we're going to start that turn now. In the descent, remember we can do a 30-degree turn. However, we can keep the turn nice and shallow to try and get overhead the numbers on the other side. Now, same as this side of the airfield, we want to pass just to the right of the numbers again. But mainly on when doing this, we don't want to be too far to the right because we got departures climbing up. So we don't want to be over the ocean here because otherwise the departure may hit us. So we can adjust the power if we're descending a bit too quickly, which we're doing about fine, but keep about 1700. Always checking out to see where the runway is. And now we're abeam it, we can start turning on to crosswind. Now we're still onto the dead side at this point, and we're about 50 feet from our target altitude, so we're going to reset power to about 2100 for the circuit. So again, look out attitude instruments. So are we perpendicular? Yes, we are. So as you know, the circuit here will get quite tight. So we don't want to have our circuits too tight. We want to be 45 degrees past the wing and turn onto downwind. Remember, aviate, navigate, communicate. So there we go. That's about 45 degrees past now. 30-degree turn onto base and onto downwind, and now it is simply a circuit to land. Okay, wings level on base, check where parallel we are. Golf Delta Alpha, left hand downwind runway 20, full stop. You also have a number of other joins. The one we're also going to be demonstrating today will be joining the circuit at crosswind. So when joining the circuit from crosswind, that's coming from the dead side. Now, all this simply involves is descending down to circuit height and crossing the inactive numbers, so the runway not in use, and then doing a normal downwind turn to land. You also have a downwind join, which involves joining exactly on the downwind leg. So that will be joining at circuit height as well. You can also join at base leg. So at airports such as Gatwick or larger airports, you might be told to join base. Now, if you are joining on a base leg, it is important to manage your height and speed correctly. You might want to join 200 feet lower than circuit height, depending on the terrain and the airport, just so that you've got a descent already started, so that you're not too high on final. Now, you can also join straight in on final. Now, there's no specific height on what you join at, but you need to judge it the best you can to ensure that you're the right angle on final, because you don't want to be too high or too low. So that is the joins we can do. So we're now going to go into the sim and demonstrate it. If you do have any questions, please feel free to ask the mentors in the students channel. So now we are going to be performing a dead side join for runway 20. So how this works is we're coming again from the dead side. This might also be referred as a crosswind join, however it's the same principle. So again, set up the HSI, visualize it, left hand circuit. So we are coming from the dead side, and we want to be at circuit height by the time we pass over the numbers. So we're still 1,000 feet, and we're within the ATZ now. So we're going to go back to 1700 RPM and start our descent. Just going to set the altitude on there. And at this point we'd also report dead side descending. Golf Delta Alpha, dead side descending, runway 20. And then they would tell us to report downwind. Again, we're aiming just to the right of the numbers, not too far right, but just enough so that we can see the numbers, and we're not giving ourselves a super short downwind. Beam the numbers, turning perpendicular to the runway, and circuit height. $2100 for the circuit. Check the runway, not quite perpendicular, get that perpendicular. There we go. Checking for that 45 degrees past the wing. Okay, 45 degrees past the wing. Starting that turn on to downwind now. Check we're tracking parallel. And now it's just a normal circuit to land. Thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you understand the types of joins we can do now. Bearing in mind that there are base joins, downwind joins and final joins. However, these are less common at the airfields you're going to fly to on the course. If you do have any questions, please do ask in the students channel on Discord or message your mentor. Please now complete the short quiz underneath this video on the Moodle. And once you've passed, please then complete the navigation brief and pass the knowledge check on that self-study lesson before putting in a session request for your first navigation flight to Stapleford. Thank you guys, and best of luck with your training.